word?
I don't
Do we need a
know.
new word? Because it's never happened before.
Bring
right?
back, resurrect.
Resurrect. I think resurrect's probably right, but that has biblical implications.
Right, so that's why we try to stay away from that.
But you're kind of playing God, so let's go with that.
Okay, cool. I'm in.
Is there one that gives you pause? Like maybe the short-faced bear?
Pause?
Maybe this isn't the best idea. The Haast eagle?
Well, humans. I've already had pause at this. Like Neanderthals and Denisovans, they were people,
Right.
and so I feel like that's not really a thing that's not somewhere we should go. Haast eagle, that's a cool one.
That's a
right?
cool one.
That's
yeah.
this was a massive, massive giant eagle that ate moa, which was a bird, an extinct bird.
People too.
Probably they were
No,
huge.
they think that they found the markings on human skulls there that indicate talons of raptors.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
Which makes sense that that's how they went extinct. Like the New Zealanders are like, enough of this shit.
Yeah, well, the moa went extinct, and so they couldn't eat
is
any
that what it
moa
was?
anymore. But maybe
So
it
they
was
ate them all?
both, right? I mean,
Right.
why did short-faced bears go extinct? Probably because nobody wanted a bear that stood 12 feet high. That
What
was
are you
a
going to do
hypercurrent.
about it, though? Like, imagine.
kill it, right?
But you imagine the daunting task of getting a group of guys together with spears to go after a short-faced bear when you know at least 4 or 5 of you are getting whacked before you can get a spear tip into one of
Maybe.
them.
Doesn't it depend? I mean, maybe what they were doing is, how they would ambush mammoths and things like that. So you hide
Mm-hmm.
around bluffs and you can have a group of people in different places and hit them all at once. Maybe you wait until that bear is eating something else, right?
Oh, sure. But
And then it's paused and
but-
you have time to...
I mean, how much did they even understand the wind back then? Like
They
the
probably
scent?
understood it really
They
well,
probably
right?
did, right?
Because
Yeah,
these
they
are
have
people
to.
who relied on that. They probably
Right.
understand it better than people who aren't hunters today, right? So
They probably knew that these animals had a greater sense of smell than we do. They probably had a greater sense of smell than we do.
or more attuned.
Oh
yes.
yeah, for sure. They probably could smell it because you can smell certain animals when you're if you go into the elk woods, you 100% can smell elk.
And is that something that you've been able to develop?
Well, I was taught it. I would smell something, and then like the guys that I'd be hunting with, like, you smell that, like that's
Right.
elk, because they urinate everywhere, and
Right.
you get this sense they have like this really musty smell during the rut too, and you could smell them.
Could you smell the dire wolves?
Well, they were stinky. I don't think you guys are bathing them.
Why would we bathe a dire wolf?
I know. My wife would be like, take him to the groomer. Because she hates when my dog gets stinky. She hates when I take him out into the dirt and play around with him, and he comes back covered in burrs and stinky. Got to brush him down.
Did they smell different?
Yeah, they did smell different. But I don't smell a lot of dogs that are never bathed.
Right.
Most of the dogs that I've ever
Wolves.
smelled.
These aren't dogs.
Yeah, bright wolves. Right. Sorry. But which is really weird. That was the other conversation that we had, that they all come from wolves. Like even Jamie has a French bulldog. He's adorable. That was a wolf
Yeah.
at one point in time, and
We don't know which wolf.
right.
Right? I mean, I think dog domestication is one of those places where both we come to terms with what we don't know and the opportunity to discover new things. The very first scientific paper that said when dogs were domesticated looked at a type of DNA that's only inherited from your mom called mitochondrial DNA. Our cells have a nucleus that has the DNA in our chromosomes that make us look and act the way we do. And then it has little cells that were once bacteria that we co-opted that make energy. And you're only inherited them from your mom. And there's a ton of them. Like there's thousands of mitochondrial genomes in every cell and only one of your nuclear genome. So in ancient DNA, because there's way more, we started just with that. It was the only thing we could recover. And the first dog mitochondrial genomes that were recovered, people were like, dogs were domesticated in Asia 150,000 years ago. Which is clearly wrong, right? There weren't human populations, societies, which is kind of what you need for dog domestication because they're attracted to the garbage or the living around where people were. So you need communities of people that are staying in place together for some time before you can have dog domestication.
Do we know for sure there weren't human populations like that 150,000 years ago?
We don't, but we do know now that dogs probably aren't that old, right?
I think what I read was 36,000.
I think it changes all the time, which is because we don't know everything.
Right.
And also probably because the first dogs were in warm parts of the world, and so we don't have the fossils. We don't have the
really?
DNA, and the fossils just didn't preserve. I think right now what people are happiest with is that it was probably sometime after the peak of the last ice age, sometime 15 to 20,000 years ago. And not sure where, because again, probably in a warmer spot. There's been lots of gene flow, lots of hybridization between domestic dogs and wolves that have made this a really hard problem.
Like you were talking about with the black wolves.
Right, exactly like that.
Yeah.
But what's cool about this date, 15 to 20,000 years ago, is that most of these people are like, yeah, that's probably the date for dogs, which means if dogs only form when there are human communities that are together, groups of people that are living together in the same place for a long time, that they were around 15 to 20,000 years ago. That is not what archaeologists think, right? So these two weights of evidence are saying, we still don't know, right?
Sort of, right? But they do believe hunter-gatherers existed in small tribes 15,000 years ago.
And maybe that was enough. But, if you think of domestication, and scientists like to have names. We like to have ways of classifying things. And so there was recently, a couple of friends of mine have published a paper which they've redefined how you consider something domestic. And they say a domestic population is something that can only survive within a human environment, within a human niche. And if you think of that as what our dogs are, right, they can only really survive and breed as dogs within this human niche, then you need a lot of humans around, and you need a sort of steady stream of the crap that humans produce to do this. And that's still kind of early. Like it's still, maybe there were hunter-gatherer populations that were more, established somewhere in the South where we don't have dog bones.
Right. That's
stuff
what's
we
weird.
don't know,
right? And then wolves are most wolves from warmer climates? No, right? They're from colder climates, aren't they?
All over the place.
All over
right?
the place?
They're wolves
Mexican wolves, right? There's Mexican wolves.
There's Mexican wolves. But we think that the closest living relative of dogs is gray wolves. It's this gray wolf lineage. But we don't know if dogs are outside of the diversity of gray wolves, so it's an extinct type of gray wolf that was the progenitor of dogs, or if they fall within the diversity of all the lineages of gray wolves that are around. And that's just because there's been so much movement of DNA around that part of the tree. I think it's a fascinating story that as we get more information, we're going to learn more about people as well. And I love that.
Dogs are the most fascinating to me because it's so obvious that there's manipulation involved. It's so obvious that through selective breeding and also getting these animals to get accustomed to people, getting close to the fire, feeding them so they don't have to hunt anymore, and then they bark when intruders come, and we develop this sort of relationship where we work together. That it's so interesting that we see the genes change into a poodle. We see this weirdness, or now it's a border collie. Like, what? And then the variety.
All of those, too, are probably Victorian, right? All of the breeds that we think of today, whether it's cattle or bison, they're, within the last couple hundred years. That is really fast selection by humans. So we are manipulating the DNA of the species that we surround ourselves with. And we have been for 15 to 20,000 years, and probably longer.
Just not in a laboratory.
Just not in a laboratory. But, is our backyard a laboratory? If I say, I like the way that dog looks, but I like the way that one can swim in water, and I bet if I breed them together, I can make one that has this double layer coat so they can go get in that frozen water, but they'll still have that, cute look or something.
That's interesting, right? Because we're thinking about science as only being done in a laboratory, or manipulation only being done in a laboratory. It's clearly done with food. I mean, it was done with plants forever.
Right.
Selective breeding of plants, splicing two plants together.
Right. I mean, when we graft plants together, I mean, that is like all of the vineyards in France, which are grafted onto American rootstocks because of the introduction of phylloxera, this aphid that came from North America that was going to completely devastate the wine industry. Now they're all spliced onto American rootstocks that can survive this aphid. And
isn't that wild?
Yeah.
I talked to a rancher in California, and they were telling me that I think it was either the avocado trees were spliced onto the pistachio trees or vice versa.
It's amazing that the plants can survive that they don't go like, yo, that's not me.
Right. Like, we can't do that. We can't take a pig liver and shove it in your... Yeah, your body would fight it off. Your immune system would fight it off.
Well, we're trying. Again, that's another cool thing that we can do with this gene editing technology is we can turn off the genes that would cause that rejection to happen. So maybe someday we can use pig organs in the place of humans and save people from dying.
Or we can just re-engineer a new version of your organs.
Yeah, so that is really cool science. This thing called the organoids, where you can actually grow in a dish in a lab a version of a little brain, something that approximates a brain or that approximates a heart or a kidney or something else. We're using this at Colossal, for example, to test hypotheses about what changes we might make to bring about, to resurrect, to de-extinct the phenotypes that we're interested in. If we grow an organoid that grows hair, can we see what that hair looks like without having to make a mammoth in order to see what that change is going to do? But it has really amazing potential for personalized medicine. So I can take some of your cells, if you get a tumor, I can grow them in this dish and I can challenge those cells with different drug cocktails to see what works before I put them in you. This technology is so cool and really just beginning.
Well, it's amazing when you think about this technology and you think about what we had just a few hundred years ago, and then you push a few hundred years from now and you think, what are the possibilities? And the only way to find out is to do experiments like what you guys are doing. Yeah. And so that's one of the reasons why some of this pushback is so silly. Like, would you rather no one ever do this work? Or would you like to be the one who does the work? Or is it just that you think the work should never be done? Like, what is the thought process?
Again, I think it's this negativity and it's this scarcity mindset that if they do this, then we can't do this, which is just, it's not the way we innovate. It's not the way we make progress.
But is this the nature of academia where, because it's very gatekept even inside of academia, right? You work for a university and you have to get the approval of all the other people and you have to be politically aligned with them and everyone has to say the right things on Twitter. It's like there's a lot of like weirdness, a lot of groupthink that comes along with all that stuff. And then you have to play politics in order to get funding. You can't be ostracized. If you're ostracized, even if you have tenure, when you see this with certain scientists that have very outside the box ideas, they get pushed out and they can't get funding anymore. Or if they don't agree with a certain narrative, what's being pushed with, whether it's public health or the environment or anything, they get ostracized, even if they're actually talking about real data and science.
Yeah, I think, we can agree that it's a mess, right? It's a hot mess, but there is genuine real science that comes out of the university system, of the academic system that we need. All the technology that led to MRIs, the early technology that gave us CRISPR, this gene editing platform, was developed using, funding from the government in scientific labs by people who are willing to take risks and step outside of that box. And then it's taken outside of there and it's turned into all of these cool things. I mean, there has to be a place where we get both of these things because there's some things that no one is ever going to build a business around until it exists. And we need this, public system in order to do that.
Yeah, and that's what's so scary about what's going on with politics and funding and research. It's because it's like as soon as you stop defunding research, you start making it more scarce and then making people...
It's just going to get worse.
Right.
It's going to get harder and we're going to fall behind and we are going to lose the place that we have had as innovators. And by we, I mean this country. We are going to lose the place we has had innovators in biotechnology, innovators in physics, innovators in all of these technologies because we've had such a robust system. It's a balance. We clearly need both of these things. And right now, it's broken.
And there's a lot of weirdness that's going on with biology in general in the world right now. And one of them is, I think there was a third scientist that was arrested for trying to bring in toxic mold from China. We know that this one scientist was arrested, and then I think there's been two more. So they're trying to introduce this toxic mold into our food supply.
The same toxic mold?
I think so. It might have been a different one, but I know it's the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
See if you can find it, Jamie.
When I heard this the first time, and I've only heard about the first one, my first thought was, is this deliberate or is this super naivete on the part of the student?
Coming from China, which scares the shit out of me. Because if China wanted to cripple America's food supply, that'd be a great way to compromise basically everything.
There is a country that is investing in science.
Oh, my God. Yeah, just their drone technology's off the charts. I was watching a documentary yesterday on the autonomous production of coal. And so they have these coal mines now that are done entirely with electric trucks, and everything's done with AI, and humans aren't involved at all. So these trucks go, they dig, they mine, they fill the trucks, they bring the coal back, and then when they're low on batteries, they charge themselves.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, and they're running 24 hours a day around the clock.
Yeah. And
we don't have anything like that.
no.
We're not even close to doing
No.
that.
And we're fighting about the amount of money that we should invest into very basic infrastructure.
Exactly.
No, it's terrifying.
It is terrifying. It's terrifying because we always hope that with every administration, there'll be positive changes. And it just never seems to be the case. It's just like more and more of the same and more short-sightedness. Like,
is it also this scarcity mindset? Like, I can't agree with this person because they once said this thing. I mean, why can't we have just a normal conversation like you and I are having right now?
Well, I think it's because it's kind of engineered into our social media structure that human beings are going to fight with each other. The algorithm favors you looking and interacting with things that upset you. You know, this is just natural human nature. If you look at like some of the people that we were talking about earlier, negative scientists, you see them online. They're tweeting negative things like all day long. Like,
it's probably because they don't have any funding, so they can't actually do any science.
Chinese scientist was arrested while arriving in the U.S. at Detroit airport. A second case in days involving the alleged smuggling of biological material.
But is it the same biological?
No, different stuff. What is this stuff?
So this was worms.
Worms?
Described as worms.
Certain worms require a government permit. I had heard that there was a third one.
This is the third.
This is the third? So there's a second one?
And this one happened.
Oh, second case in days.
But I will say, they were going to the same place.
Oh, boy.
This is the University of Michigan.
Weird.
Another Chinese scientist also going to the University of Michigan.
Yeah.
Boy, that's also really crazy because the thing about China and their scientists that come over to America is they all have to check in with the CCP. Like if you are a Chinese scientist and you're from China and you're working in America, you got to check in, which means like how much of this research is just getting shared with China, and it's all weird.
And we're focused on something else. We're focused on
They play a very long game, and I think their game involves raptors and T-Rexes. And they're going to release all the stuff that you won't do.
I've seen that movie.
I wonder, like, I worry about that, like your information, the stuff that you guys are working on, if that stuff can be compromised, if someone can get a hold of it, and then they start doing that stuff over there.
Well, the thing is, the foundation for what we're doing, all of the stuff from sequencing ancient DNA to gene editing technologies to learning how do we link certain DNA sequence changes to the way something looks, this stuff is all out there anyway, right? Like CRISPR technology exists.
Right.
We're not working on humans, but other companies are openly, right? It's not like there's
the story from China where the one doctor got in trouble and wound up going to jail because they had supposedly inoculated these babies from HIV, but they, in fact, were making them more intelligent.
I think maybe that was two separate stories because I know the story about Jiang Ke. That's He Jiangke was the name of that scientist, and he went to jail for 3 years. He actually did some training in the U.S. His name is He. But he was trying to use gene editing tools to make these babies have a particular mutation that we know is protective against HIV. It's the one that stops the HIV from entering the cells where it then kills the cells. And I think this was a story that was broken by a guy at MIT Tech Review a couple of days before it was announced, but he thought that he was going to be able to announce this to great fanfare in front of a community that was going to celebrate him for having done this. And the story broke a few days early, but he had set this up, a whole PR thing. He had like YouTube videos that were ready to go to explain what he had done. He wasn't trying to do it in secret. He thought he was going to be a hero, right? But people were like, holy shit, dude, what the fuck? Like, no, we're not editing human germlines, the cells that will be passed on to the next generation. There's still a moratorium against doing that work. The baby that was just born, for example, they didn't edit any of his cells that would get passed on to the next generation. It's only the cells in his body. So those edits will only ever live in him. Right? There's a difference between doing that, and it's the second one that we're uncomfortable with.
I thought they were editing it to make the children have a potential for higher intelligence.
I think
that's maybe an unintended consequence of the gene that they were editing, because in mice it did something like that, and so I think they just assume they're going to be smarter, but I don't think that they're old enough to even test that yet.
Interesting.
Maybe.
But if they knew that,
But it
wouldn't
wasn't.
they do
It didn't
that?
end up even being the right.
Because is
gene,
HIV
the
a
right
real issue
mutation.
today? It's not really.
So the reason that he got whatever ethical permission he did in China to do this is because they were children that were born by IVF because the dad had AIDS. And so what they were trying to do was what he claimed he was trying to do was create an environment where they would never accidentally get it, I guess if there's blood.
And it
whatever.
also makes them smarter.
I don't know if they knew that at the time. But I mean,
they
they're
did.
just
China's
keep saying
played
it.
a long game.
It definitely affected their brains, is what they just keep saying, sort of in this article.
Yeah, but they don't know because they haven't been able to measure anything with these. I mean, they're guessing that would have affected their brains at this point.
Well,
these scientists
when they're
will.
the leaders of the world in 20 years, we'll know.
We'll know for sure.
We'll know.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
This is, I mean, what makes us smart has been a thing that people have been trying to solve for a long time. And we're always
Right.
looking for like the one or two genes that figure out this. Very few traits are encoded by one or two genes. There are some hair traits, whether your earlobes are attached or not. That's one gene that you can
But
change.
it is
right?
quite fascinating to think that in the future, dumb people will not exist.
I doubt that's true.
Why? It may be relatively dumb compared to everyone else that's alive then, but maybe far more intelligent than people that are alive today.
Do you know what's interesting about the efforts that have gone on to try to figure out genes that make people smart is that they can find associations between what we're classifying as smart, and this is hard. Like when you're saying smart, do you mean somebody who can have a conversation with another person and shut up so that you're actually listening to the other person?
Emotional intelligence.
Do you mean somebody who can solve shitload of math problems and be a physicist or whatever?
And be awkward socially.
Do you mean somebody who's just really fucking good looking, right? I mean, what do you mean when you say is this
Yeah.
thing? And so you have to define that first. And then once it's defined, if you look for associations between genes at high frequency with people who rank high on whatever your thing is that you're ranking them on, it's different depending on which human population you're studying. So it's, I mean, and this makes total evolutionary sense. Different things were under selection in different habitats at different times, and that made different people smarter in different ways for whatever that was.
Yeah.
I actually think this is not how we start editing ourselves, because that's not how evolution works. As soon as we edit everybody to be smart in that particular way and to be 5'10" and blonde with blue eyes and perfect and never going to have diabetes, the most attractive thing out there is going to be the opposite of that.
Right.
So there will be, I just don't think, people are always thinking about we're going to get superhumans, but they have a specific picture in their mind of what that means. That's not the same picture that the Chinese government has in mind. It's not the same picture that I have in mind, right? And that's why I don't fear it as much, I think, just because that's not how it's going to happen. How it will happen is there will be some massive pandemic and we discover that there is a particular mutation that means you're going to die. And then suddenly this most unethical thing that is like completely abhorrent and you absolutely can't do it will be the only ethical solution. That is how we get there.
Wow.
In my imagination.
Wow. Well, I would love to have you back on when you get more information and more breakthroughs and more stuff that you're doing. I really, really enjoyed our conversation.
You should come to the lab. I know you got to see.
I would love to come to the lab. I will definitely do that. I promise you.
Yeah.
I promise.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here. It was really great.
Thank
I
you.
really enjoyed it. And your book, Life as We Made It, How 50,000 Years of Human Innovation Refined and Redefined Nature, Beth Shapiro.
I think
It's
the
out now.
rest of my Siberia story is in there, including the part at the end where
Did you
where
do
I
an
got
audiobook?
arrested. I did. I read the audiobook for that. Yes.
Yes. I love it. I'm so glad you read it. I hate when other people have to read people's work.
Well, I asked if I could read it because my first book, How to Clone a Mammoth, I didn't read. And I heard the audiobook and I write in first person and I tell stories and I try to make it funny. And I was like, that's not how it should be read. So I wrote to them and I said, can I read this book? And they said, oh, you're going to have to audition. And I was like,
Audition
Shit.
for your own book.
what if I am not good enough to read my own audiobook? Like,
Well, you clearly are.
well, luckily
you're
they
a great
hired me,
talker.
so.
Thank you so much. Thank you really for being here. I really appreciate it. It's really fun. Thank you. All right. Bye, everybody.